Good evening. I have called the Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. We have invocation by Pastor Scott Keel.
Let's bow in prayer. Our gracious Father, we are grateful to live in this city of Broken Arrow. Father, we pray for wisdom. We pray for confidence in our decision making. We pray for humility in our leadership. And Father, we are grateful for our leaders. We're grateful for the leaders in this room, for our community leaders and our city and state. And as citizens, we respect each other. So we're grateful for this time of year when our hearts and minds turn toward peace and goodwill toward others. And Father, may that be prevalent in each one of us. Father, continue to bless this community and give us each peace and prosperity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Roll call.
Green.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. And please stand and join Vice Mayor Gillespie in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right, item 7, public hearings, appeals, presentations, recognitions, and awards. 7A, presentation and discussion of upcoming citizen bond survey. Aaron McCullough.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors, Mr. Spurgeon. Aaron McCullough, Director of Communications for the City of Broken Arrow. Earlier this evening, you convened a special meeting to discuss, review, and ultimately accept the citizen bond survey that we anticipate sending out to the public in January. This will be a Cliff's Notes version, if you will, of that meeting, just to get it on record of just what we discussed. The reason for the bond is that we do anticipate going to the public, to the voters in 2026 with the next general obligation bond package with approximately $300 million worth of capital improvements to enhance the quality of life here in Broken Arrow. After reviewing after reviewing the survey and the feedback from earlier this evening, you provided us with direction on some changes that we will make to the survey before we get it out. And I'll go through that right now quickly. A4 on page 2, this is the question about rating how safe or unsafe you feel. We will create distinction between downtown and commercial areas. We'll separate those out, and then we'll add an option as well for how safe you feel at night to go along with the question of how safe you feel during the day. On A5, page 2, we will remove the responsiveness of fire and EMS services because that deals more with what the city provides as far as what the community, how the community feels as it's indicated in the question. On page 4 and 5, question A10, this is rating the quality of each of the following services in Broken Arrow. At your direction, we will lump together the solid waste and recycling services, and we will change identify the services a little differently, rebrand them to curbside garbage collection, curbside recycling collection, and curbside yard waste collection. Also, at the bottom of page 5, we will separate the question that asks about the overall customer service by Broken Arrow employees. We'll separate police from those city employees, receptionist, planning, that sort of thing, so that there is some distinction there. On page 8, question B5, do you rent or own your own home? We will provide an option for those adults who are living at home and who aren't renting or owning on their own. Page 8 and 9, questions B7 through B12 On all of those, we will add the opt-out option for folks not to respond if they don't want to. And then we will also merge B9 with B10. This is the question about Hispanic, Spanish, or Latino. We'll merge that with the other races as well. On page 10, C1, we will complete the first line on this where it asks about the number of miles of arterial streets. This will be 15.5 miles. On page 11, C8, we will add let me go back. On page 11, C8, this is the question about improvements to parks within the community. We will add mountain bike trails. We will remove another skate park expansion. We will remove another splash pad. Those will be removed because they have been identified in the master plan for Elam Park as items, amenities that the community has already indicated that they do want. And then on the last one there, we will rename community swimming pool. We will do that that option will now be new aquatic center, parentheses, indoor pool for school recreation competitive use. On page 12, C11, in the description here, this question is about public facilities, and it falls back on some of those facilities that we built as a result of the passage of the 2018 bond. And on this one, we will add Arts at 302 to the Brown Kimbrough Center for Arts, Innovation, and Creativity is home to Arts at 302 and is a creative hub. That way it gives people some recognition of what is actually in that building. And then finally, as far as the distribution of this, this will go out to everyone. Earlier, we had talked about whenever the committee had met previously, we talked about just sending it out to registered voters. That was changed over to sending just to utility customers. And then after speaking with you all, the decision was made to go ahead and send it out to the entire public because of the mechanisms that are in place to prevent some ballot box stuffing, if you will. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any discussion?
I just have one, Mayor. If I could just ask Aaron to finish up by just talking about next steps that you shared with the council members.
Yes, sir. Next steps, we have an agreement with a company that we are working with to distribute this survey. We will get that submitted to them. And the idea that the plan is to get this out to the public mid-January, late January. The survey will run for about 4 weeks. And from there, it'll take about another 6 weeks for them to go through the responses, get them back to us, and then we'll be able to come back to you with the responses that we've received from the public and provide that to you and then in turn to the public.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, next item is the citizens' opportunity to address the council. We have our youth city council that would like to speak.
Good evening and Merry Christmas, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mr. Spurgeon. Tonight I have with me, there are supposed to be 3 youth city councilors here this evening. Christian, unfortunately, Christian's here. Traffic, I think the Rama traffic was a little bit crazy. We took our youth city councilors with us to the Atlanta NLC trip on November 15th through the 18th. And during that trip, one of the things that Councilor Parks had asked is for them to have the opportunity to briefly tell you a few takeaways that they had from the conference. So I'd like to start with Aditya Das and let him talk.
Good evening. My name is Aditya Das, and I attended the NLC conference in Atlanta. I had a fun time with my peers and mentors. So one thing that I took away from the conference is that excessive red tape can negatively affect certain cities. So I discussed this with some of the other youth city councils, and I even made a couple of friends along the way. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Lucas, and one of the things that I took away from the trip was the massive opportunity that we got to build networking and communications with other city council. Excuse me. But networking and communications with other city councils and building those bonds that could go into our future really provided a different outlook that you don't really see too often. I really enjoyed it.
Hello, my name is Christian, And something I took away from the conference was a sense that cities are more connected than separated. Like, because a lot of the conferences were with multiple city councils and speaking to multiple different city councils and multiple different city leaders. And it really brought the city councils and the cities themselves together in a way that I never really had thought about before. And it was really interesting.
We all have similar issues, and positive or negative, right? So you get to hear those items. So it's kind of cool.
This was a great group to take, these three juniors. We changed it this year where the juniors can go to one of our meetings. As a senior next year, not this coming year, but the following year, as their senior year, they will be going to Washington, D.C. with us on that trip also. All of them will be able to go. But these gentlemen were really great. We knew they were there because the information they would share back with us. But other than that, they were really quiet. No trouble, not at all. They're going to be great leaders, and that's what they're learning is leadership.
I was surprised we didn't. The conference was really kind of crazy, and it was split in those two huge buildings. And I think we must have passed you guys a million times because I never saw you guys.
I know.
So it was kind of sad. We kept thinking we'd see you at one of the sessions and never got around to.
Right.
I did get to sit in the back of some of their sessions, and they had some really good sessions, and everyone in there seemed to be really engaged and paying attention. And like I said, they were able to come out and share the things that they learned. So we appreciate you guys and your time and energy you're investing into learning and growing and being productive citizens here in our city. And hopefully one day you'll be sitting in our seats.
A long time from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Next two items. I do want to say that Aditia's older brother was a previous youth city councilor, and he's now in med school. He said that I said he should come in, and he said no, he's actually pretty tired. He's studying. So
Thank you very much, Lori.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lori. All right. Item 9 is general council business. 9A, consideration, discussion, and possible direction to the administration relative to nominating a city councilor or an appointee to the Arts OK Board. Lori Hill. Hi.
I'm back. While doing some housekeeping through the use agreements with our user groups, I noticed that we never officially have appointed anybody from City Council to serve on the Arts OK Board. So that's what I'm here for this evening, is to have you all decide amongst yourselves who you would like to have as that selection.
You want to have
I would be happy to do it. I spent some time with the folks over at Arts 302 and learned a lot of different things, and we have a lot of similar passions. So I'd be happy to serve if no one else
I
is
think that'd be great.
Great.
objects to that.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Counselor Justin Green to serve on the Arts 302 board or Arts OK board.
Second.
All right. We have a nomination in a second. Roll call.
Sorry, it's me. I didn't press
There we
my motion.
It's me.
It's not you.
Your issue is me.
It's the photographers.
Yeah.
Should have known
You good?
myself.
Okay.
Good for you.
Item 9, consideration, discussion, and possible direction to the administration to nominate one city councilor or an appointee designee to the Broken Arrow Senior Board to replace Counselor Johnny Parks.
Yes. Counselor Parks' position on the Broken Arrow Seniors Board expires on December 31st, 2023. And part of their use agreement is there's an opportunity for 1 to 2 city councilors to serve on that board. And currently it is Vice Mayor Gillespie and Counselor Parks. So with him stepping down, we'll need advice from the council who you would like to have that position replaced.
You know, I visited with Lisa about that. Lisa has been great. She was on the board when I got on there 6 years ago, and we served together. So I always wondered when this happens, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. She's already been nominated and elected by the board to serve. Now, this could really upset that apple cart.
Yes.
but it
This is
worked out
this is
great.
just the housekeeping that we're doing internally
realize
to
that.
make sure that we're transparent.
I realize that. I'm just saying that I would like to nominate her since she's already been elected by them. So nominate Lisa to take my place on that board.
I'll second that nomination.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you.
You're
And-
very welcome.
And I do want to say, Johnny, we're going to miss you on the board. And I know that the senior center is going to miss you because I know you've worked really hard this year. I mean, not that you haven't worked really hard previously, but while I've served with you, there's been a lot of good things going on, but we really appreciate you, and everyone has said nothing but admiration and appreciation for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Now, with your free time, you can
You
just
can
go play
play
pool there
pool
and stuff.
and eat jello.
That's true.
Wonderful.
All right, item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute professional consultant agreement with Narrate, I hope I said that right, design for the schematic design of a new Broken Arrow City Hall. Charlie Bright.
Good
How do you
evening,
say-
Mayor.
How do you say the company?
Narrate.
Narrate.
It's like narrate, like tell a story.
Oh, got it.
So since we started with that question, I'll say that this company is previously Seltzer Schaefer. They,
Okay.
some of their employees bought out the firm, and they decided once they bought it out to move away from, I think it's Jan. I don't remember the Seltzer Schaefer comes from the last names of the original owners. So they decided to get a new name for their firm, and the base of the story behind it when they actually met with Mr. Spurgeon, some of us was telling that their new image for the company is that they're architects, but they're really there to tell the story of the person that they're designing for, And so we thought it was an interesting name. But yeah, so so here tonight we're to talk about our contract for a schematic design for a new city hall. As you guys know, we're starting to look into building what may be the replacement for this city hall. It's something we put out for an RFP for earlier this year, and not surprisingly, it was a very popular project that most firms in the state wanted to be included on. We got proposals from, I think, close to 15 different architectural firms. We went through a long process, interviewed 4 of them, had a second interview with another one, and ultimately the committee was a unanimous decision that they were recommending Narrate Design. We spoke with Mr. Spurgeon a lot. He pointed out, that this building could be kind of a symbolism and identity for our community going into the future. And, it was one chance to do it right. So this original first contract, it's smaller than what the final one will be, but it is to evaluate up to 3 different sites. We haven't picked a permanent site for the location, and to do programming and a schematic design for the facility. So we'll go through the steps of meeting with all the departments, meeting probably with the council, everybody else, and determine what the priorities are for the facility, determine how big the facility needs to be. And then taking that size that we all kind of agree to with a general cost estimate, and then see how that fits on multiple different sites throughout the city. With our goal, then we'll bring back those sites and those drawings to the council to ultimately make a recommendation on where the facility goes. So.
I would like to talk to the council about, at the State of the City last week, I talked about those official duties and then those other duties. I really think it's appropriate to have a couple of council members serve on a subcommittee to stay at 24,000 feet in terms of some of the initial discussions, get your thoughts to narrate. Might even be a good idea to have somebody from the Planning Commission be a part of those initial discussions. So that way you see how well things work when the council had subcommittee for the survey, and being able to explain why we did certain things and so forth. And so I would like to bring back as a part of this, just discussion, if you're interested in having 2 of you. Really, the first part would be deciding where we want to go, the schematic, and then there's other phases, the design phase and so forth. At that point, there's going to have to be a lot more council involvement, but I would really like to have a couple of y'all consider being a part of it. So thank you, Mayor.
So ultimately, we negotiated the contract with Narrate to provide schematic design evaluation of 3 sites and drawings of what they would look like on those 3 sites. And that contract's for $174,500. And we're recommending to move forward with that contract.
I'll make a motion to approve and authorize a professional consultant agreement with Narrate Design.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you all.
That's right.
Item 9D, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute project maintenance, financing, and right-of-way agreement supplement number 2 between the Oklahoma Department of Transportation and the City of Broken Arrow for construction of the Broken Arrow 23rd street project. You're gonna say all of this over again. So.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Mr. Spurgeon. I'm here to talk about the item before you, which actually involves two roadway projects, both on 23rd Street or County Line. The first project being from County Line from Houston to New Orleans, 81st to 101st. That project back in 2015, the city was awarded federal funds for planning, design, right-of-way for the 81st to 101st Houston to Washington project. To date, we've spent about $500,000 of that money on design, all mostly conceptual design, leaving just under $5 million for that project. At the same time, we have the County Line from Houston to Kenosha, 81st to 71st, that, as you know, is under construction, well under construction, with the bridge being constructed over Highway 51. As a part of that project, the city was awarded federal funds as well as ODOT funds for the construction of that project. Since we've been in construction, we found that there was some differences between the plans and actual field conditions. The plans were designed several years ago, so there were some field changes that were made, and there was also some unknowns that were impossible to predict, such as underground utilities and poor soil conditions near the bridge that required remedy. ODOT has not provided, I'll say this, the ODOT is managing this project, and they have a firm that they've hired to manage the construction project, or the project construction rather, they've not identified all the shortfalls and specifically accounted for giving us estimated costs, but we believe it's going to be north of $1 million in construction funds that were short. City staff, this was before I came on the city, but city staff has identified some funds, some state funds federal funds that are administered by the state that were available for the project that I previously mentioned, 81st to 101st, that we can move to utilize for the construction of this project as it's being built. The city needs the money to actually pay for the actual construction on this project. The ODOT and the Indian Nation Council of Government has all agreed to this. They thought it was a great idea, and they're put together this agreement that we're asking for approval on, and to move that $1.5 million. There is no additional cost to the city. As far as the agreement's concerned, there will be no match required. The 20% match that's typically required that will not be required as part of this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions?
So are we talking about from 81st to 91st?
So
Which is,
for the construction money is,
Washington, so I'm confused.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. The funding is for Houston to Kenosha.
Okay.
And it's being pulled from Houston to New Orleans from planning funds that are being pulled from Houston to New Orleans, all on County Line.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a federal grant that
Okay,
you're only
gotcha.
allowed to use it specifically in a certain area. And we've determined in consultation with INCOG is that adding this additional money, like Zach said, to that current project will cover what has been extraordinary, unexpected, to make sure we're using federal dollars, which are using many federal dollars already to complete this project. The other thing I want to point out is that does leave us additional funds that we can use on County Line Road at the Washington intersection, which, as I mentioned to you Monday, is an area that, as we transition our community to some of those areas that need to be roads that need to be widened and need to be fixed, that's a problematic area. So it's perfect that we have this money that only can use an area that the construction team can be able to use it for the completion of those two projects.
Maybe we can use that extra money for the smell.
Nose plugs for all.
So my understanding, we're pulling money from 81st to New Orleans to move it down to 71st.
81st to
County Line.
Correct. And
Per-
we still have approximately $3.5 million that will be used to specifically look at the intersection at Washington and County Line.
Okay. So where are we going to replace those funds with when we go to do the other end of county line?
Actually, that was just a planning grant. There was
Okay.
no construction. There was no construction money. It was just for the planning, but it's been sitting there, and it's one of those where if we don't use it, then we're going to have to give it back.
Sure.
So I asked the same question of Kenny. But it's for planning, and this qualifies, but there's not any construction money.
So I just want to, because when I was reading, and I actually meant to ask this question before and I didn't. So when I was reading the background, it says 1.5 STP money from the Washington Street widening project, which from Lynn Lane to,
That's incorrect. That's an
so
error.
that's incorrect. Okay. So what you said is correct. Okay.
Yes.
Be the
Just wanna make sure.
23rd.
So it was written wrong. Okay. I just
Correct.
want to, because that.
That's
I was
on
like,
me.
That is not, okay, no, sorry. I didn't mean to.
No problem.
We appreciate the fact that you read it.
So, well, and I was like, what are we doing? We have to widen. And
I had that project in my head because we are going to use those planning funds to design improvements to 91st and County
Yes.
Line.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. I understand now. Thank you. I will make a motion to approve and authorize execution of the project maintenance and this whole agreement supplement number 2 between ODOT and the city of Broken Arrow.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 9E, consideration of approval of fiscal year 2023 to 2025 collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 2551. Kelly Cox.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Spurgeon. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'm happy to be in front of you this evening to discuss a 2-year agreement with the International Association of Firefighters. I will go through the articles individually, but very briefly to give you an overview of the proposed articles that we are looking to change. Again, this is a 2-year agreement. It is backdated to July 1st, so there will be some retro calculations moving backwards. We have also changed Article 10, which is health and safety. We have added language to appoint a physical fitness committee with equal representation from both the city and the IAFF to develop a comprehensive physical fitness incentive program for the employees. Article 11, union business, we have changed language to better utilize our training funds, and we have also decreased union negotiation members' paid time off from 5 members to 3 members. We have changed longevity in Article 17 to include longevity to begin at the 2nd year of service, $325 per year of service, maxing out at $8,125 or 25 years of service. Article 18, vacations and holidays. We've done some language clarifications in this article, and we've also included an MOU at the end of the article, which transfers from vacation leave from a 40-hour work week to 24-hour shifts. And we have changed from maximum accumulation maximum carryover to maximum accumulation, which is more in line with the city's way of conducting vacation leave. And we have addressed how we transition vacation leave accruals from a 24-hour shift employee to a 40-hour shift employee, and a 40-hour shift employee transitioning to a 40 to a 24-hour shift employee. Article 21, hospitalization, surgical, medical insurance. We are proposing a 5% increase for year 1 and also a 5% increase for year 2. Article 26, we are changing. It was working out a classification, but we're changing that to military leave to provide military leave in line with federal and state law. Year 1 of compensation, we are adjusting compensation 8.5% year 1 and proposing a 3% increase for year 2. We are changing EMT license incentive amounts and eligibility
providing language regarding license suspension and license eligibility, and providing a weekly stipend for members transferring from a 24 to a 48-hour work shift schedule. Article 28, which is uniform allowance and protective gear, we're placing some dollar limits on the RX contacts and RX eyeglasses if those items get damaged in the course of the duties. Death benefits, we're increasing that from $15,000 in the event somebody loses their life in the while employed. That benefit increases to $25,000. Again, this is a 2-year agreement. There are numerous AOPs or administrative operating procedures that are moving forward. Those are all listed before you as well. Job descriptions, uniforms and minimum staffing, promotions, grooming, and then a number of MOUs or memorandums of understanding. Again, this is backdated to July 1st, 2023, and I'm happy to say it is a 2-year agreement, and I recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Recommend approval too, Mayor.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
With a motion.
I do have one
Oh,
question.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Be faster than that, Justin.
I heard you mention, I'm looking for it here on the death benefit.
Yes, sir.
You said it applies if is it while employed or is it line of duty?
I believe it's while employed, but I'm going to double check.
No, I found it. Yeah, it's while employed. Okay.
To the survivor of any employee covered by the agreement. So it's while employed.
Thank
Who
you.
dies, who dies while employed with the city of Broken Arrow.
Thank you.
Agreement approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 10 is preview ordinances. 10A, consideration, discussion, and possible preview of an ordinance amending Broken Arrow Code of Ordinances, Chapter 5, Animals, and set for adoption. Trevor.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and Mr. Spurgeon. Chapter 5 of our Code of Ordinances governs all the laws about animals. And so we have been working with code enforcement and also with the police department to see areas that we could address that we've had issues in the past. So for example, starting off, we've had to further define what makes adequate shelter. So in our current ordinance, we don't have a definition for that. The updated ordinance, we make sure to designate it's a waterproof roof, 3 sides, and things of that nature. We've also further defined what a nuisance animal is to make sure that we have it on the books that if you have an animal that damages the property of others or habitually chases other pedestrians or other animals, that behavior is also covered. So we've had some circumstances in the past in municipal court where we've had some behaviors that we haven't had on the books that we can address. In addition, one of the other major changes is there's a requirement that in addition for rabies vaccination, that owners are required to sterilize their pets at 6 months. Now, there are exceptions for hobbyists. There's also exceptions for medical reasons. My understanding of the reasons for that with discussions with animal control is just the number of animals that we have that are unwanted in the community. You still would be able to have your animals unsterilized if you followed one of those exemptions that we had. We also clarified that it's against the law to tether an animal unless the animal has access to water and shelter. There's also a provision updates the definition of cruelty to animals that also includes the intentional harassment and overworking of an animal. There's also a section that provides for the reviewing applications for adoptions, that you could deny an application for an adoption if someone had been previously convicted for animal cruelty. There's also another provision that's been changed regarding the sale of animals, to clarify that they have to be sold at where the buyer or the seller lives, but also that it prohibits it for the sale at public curbsides, roadways, etc. So there's a lot of changes. They're all in red. If you have any specific questions about any of the changes, again, this is for preview. This is for a chance to get input from the governing body to see if it's something that they're interested in, if there's changes they want to direct, or any other feedback. So with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Well, so who is going to go around checking all the animals to make sure that they've been fixed?
So my understanding would be more of a, once they come into contact with the animal, if there is an animal at large, or if they get a call about a nuisance animal, that would be the time that would be done. I would defer to animal control as to their specific operations. I don't envision them going door to door, knocking on doors, asking to check for the fertility status of the animal.
Can you show me your dogs?
I would not want
Yeah.
that responsibility.
Stuff.
For example.
I just, I hate the fact that we have to have licenses for animals. Y'all know that. I've talked about this in depth before. And I think it's first because it's not anything that any of us do. I mean, maybe y'all have licenses for all your dogs, but we figured all this out before that according to our records, it's like, we have like 500 dogs in the whole city if we go by how many people have a license. And to put restrictions like, I mean, I actually said this today sarcastically to somebody. The only thing we have to have permits for the city is to have a dog and to shoot fireworks. And so and those are the two things that people like may or may not do and we can't enforce. So having a law, which is basically what this is, that we're going to force people to sterilize their animal. While I think it's a great idea, my animals are fixed, I don't want animals getting pregnant. I don't understand how we're going to enforce it and why have an ordinance that we can't possibly enforce. And if we pick up someone's dog, they get loose, animal control picks them up. Are they going to hold the dog hostage until somebody pays to get it fixed?
So procedurally, how that works is you would cite the owner because the owner is required to be similar if they didn't have a rabies vaccination. So it'd be a similar process. So yeah, here's the makes it a Class C offense. And so then they have to produce written evidence showing the sterilization status so that they can get the animal back. I mean, so procedurally, that's how that would have to operate. So
Well, I think it's a great idea. I don't know how you can, I understand a rabies vaccination because that's affecting other people and other people's dogs. And if you get bit, it could affect your health. I get the thought behind having, spade and neuter your animals, but I don't know that that's the government's job to tell me that I have to do that. So. Anybody else have any thoughts? Y'all think it's our job?
Well, they're going to pick up the animals that are running loose. Is that correct?
generally, but they
So
also
that's why they come back and can find the owner if they're not vaccinated.
correct.
Have a permit.
Are we finding them for not having permits?
I
We're
haven't
not.
asked that from our animal control. I'm not sure. I'd have to defer to them.
We could make a lot of money off of this if we start doing that. I mean, think of how much money we could make. We start finding people for not having their dog permits or their cat permits or their whatever other permits we need. If their cat or dog isn't fixed, if they don't have their rabies, we can this could be a great moneymaker for the city.
I don't see a lot of dogs running around anymore. You know what I mean? Around the city.
I'm being sarcastic, by the way, for people that are watching that don't understand sarcasm.
So I don't know why if the animal group, the police department feel like that we have to, we need it, then I'm not opposed to it. Because I think they need to be neutered. You need to take care of your animals. And all I'm saying is if you don't, then you'll be fine.
Well, I'd have to defer to the PD and animal control in terms of the numbers of animals that they're finding that are unfixed, unsterilized. My understanding through this process, and again, it is a working process. That's why we're here to present to you and get feedback, is that it is an issue of animals that are not sterilized. And so then you have more animals that are unwanted, unhomed, and that exacerbates the problem.
Well, can we defer this until we have a chance to make a presentation, or at least, help us in our decision with it?
Certainly.
See how many tickets
Yeah,
maybe
see
were
how many.
issued that did,
Well-
people that
See how
didn't have
issue it
permits
is.
or.
If we are going to make a law in our city, an ordinance, then we have to enforce it. Or else it is a waste of all of our time to do it. And it's a waste of the paper that it's written on. So all I'm saying is if we are going to go out on a limb and vote for these things, then we better have something, the testicular fortitude to back it up with fines and whatever else we're going to do. I mean, otherwise, don't make the law.
And that's what I'm in agreement with. I just think we need the data to see, you know what I mean, to answer some of the questions that we have.
I would motion that we table it for further discussion with animal control and law enforcement, and
Right.
we can bring back up.
Certainly, I think that's a great idea. We'll get with animal control. We'll have them be able to be present with
Sure.
the data that they have on those issues.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second
Second.
his table.
Did you motion? Did you hit it?
I did. It's green
We
on
have a
my
motion to
screen.
table and a second. Roll call.
Yeah, it came up there. I think we just need more information,
I'd like to know the stats because I agree. I mean, why have a law that we're not going to enforce? Or if that we haven't even enforced because we've had that licensing law for a long time. And I guarantee you we have more than 500 dogs in the city.
And I made up that number. But
I don't
it was
even think
it
we
was
have
a
500.
very
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
number. I don't even
Yeah,
know if it was that much.
All right. We have no ordinances. We do have an executive session. Entertain a motion. No remarks. Oh, I'm just going to skip right past remarks. Sorry.
That's good. We'll move on.
Any governing body members have any remarks? Sorry about that. Moving right along. City manager.
Mayor, members of council, good evening. Just three things. First, I'd like to thank the council members for participating in the State of the City. I've got some incredibly positive feedback about answering the questions on the state of our city. I know there was a lot of time and effort that you put into that. You could tell the dedication and love you have for our community with your comments. So I just wanted to thank you on behalf of my team for a great job. Great job. Secondly, I just have two things. Mixed emotions. Tonight is Chuck Vokes' last city council Bama meeting officially. And he's got his wife Cheryl, I believe, if I remember. Yes. Okay. My memory's still good here tonight. And I know he's going to may have some comments in the Bama meeting, but I'm not sure how many people stick with us when we go to the Bama meeting. So I just wanted to, on behalf of Kenny Schwab and Norm Stevens and myself, thank him for over 5 years of service to our great city and utility department. And I believe he is definitely leaving it in much better hands. And we were very appreciative of your efforts, Chuck. So I just want to say thank you for all you did for us. Father Time, obviously, there's changes that come with an organization. With him moving on, we've had some promotions, and I wanted to mention that Emily Rowland is in the office, I should say, in the meeting tonight. She is our new environmental division manager with engineering construction, and I've got her embarrassed. It's been really exciting to see some of the promotions of those that a part of our succession plan for those that really want to step up and lead. And she got their job on her merit, not because she lives in the same neighborhood as I do. So I want to make that real clear. But now I'm very, very proud of the fact that she stepped up and is leading that division. So congratulations, Emily. Appreciate that. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right. So now I'll entertain a motion to go into Bama.
So moved.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to go into Bama. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Let's see, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right, item 5, it's 5A, presentation and discussion on the Environmental Protection Agency Federal Lead and Copper Rule. Or lead. Oh, so sorry.
Our lady, no, what's that?
It's our last council meeting. I'm
It'll be
ready
a
for
long
Santa to come, I
afternoon.
think. Santa.
I knew.
Lead.
Lead, yes, lead. Good evening, Merry Christmas, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors, Mr. Spurgeon. I think it's very appropriate that my last presentation for the city of Broken Arrow is related to water quality. I can say very proudly that throughout my 43 years in water utilities, I have always emphasized water quality, contrary to what most, in the industry believe is that the quantity is more important than the quality. I've always felt that the quality should come first. If you think about water and how it touches all of our residents and citizens every day, it's every hour of every day. We don't offer another service that does that. And I think because we do such a great job in making sure that it's there and available and safe, and when they're done with it, that it goes and gets cleaned up for the environment, sometimes that's overlooked and we forget that. So I would ask for y'all to please remember that as you go forward without me here, okay? So, get my presentation. I'm being brave in doing this electronically rather than paper. And Cheryl will tell you, I'm always the one that has to print out my ticket before I get on a plane. I won't use my phone because I get frustrated with people that get locked up because their phone isn't ready. So, first slide. The lead and copper rule, the LCR, as everything in water has acronyms, is to address excess lead and copper in our water. There are no safe levels of lead, and this is mostly about the lead. Children that are exposed to lead may be left with permanent intellectual disabilities, behavior disorders. It is permanent. It is not something that once it's in them, it can be removed. It's something that they and their families live with for generations. For many years, the EPA has sought to address lead in gasoline, in paints, and other products. So the lead and copper rule was passed to address this in water. Believe it or not, it wasn't until 1991 until the EPA first published an LCR to minimize the lead. Since then, the rule keeps getting revised. The latest revision was in December 2023 with the lead and copper rule improvements. So that just came out a few weeks ago. Okay. Good. Lead is not found naturally in water. I think that's important for people to know. It's not something that is naturally in our water supply that we treat. The lead found in water comes from pipes and faucets and fixtures. It wasn't until 1986 that Congress banned the use of lead pipes. And you think, well, that's crazy. Why would anybody put lead pipes in their water system knowing how toxic lead is? In 1987, the state of Oklahoma adopted this ban. So the key provisions of the LCR are identifying what areas are impacted, strengthening the drinking water treatment requirements, replacing lead service lines, making sure that the samples we get are representative of what's actually out there, protecting children in schools, and improving the public communication of the results. So we're going to go through these kind of step by step, identifying the areas most impacted. We are required by October 16th of 2024 to identify any service lines that are lead within our system. And of course, there's two service lines. There's the line that runs from the main up to our meter, and that's typically the utility's responsibility, and then from the meter onto the house, which is typically the homeowner's responsibility. It is still really up in the air as to if a homeowner has a lead service line, whether we pay for that or they pay for that, or whose problem it is. Many cities have established policies and made the decision that no, they have to pay for it or we have to pay for it. But again, that's not clearly defined. So we've been working real hard since we started installing our automatic meters in the ground. We did that in 3 phases, and it's taken about 12 years. The last phase was done over about the last 3 years, and that was about 10,000 meters. We knew this was coming at that time. And so what we did when we put those meters in the ground, those 10,000 meters, we started identifying what is the service line coming from the main and what's the service line going to the house. And so we were ahead on our inventory because we did that. We were proactive with that. VA, as you know, has about 41,000 water accounts. And so there's been a lot of, when this law first came out, all 6 things were supposed to start happening in October of next year. But since then, the state and the EPA have kind of backed off. And the one thing that we know that's required right now is this service line inventory that we need to do. So what we're going to do is notify, once we publish this inventory, which we have to do, we're going to use this as the basis for our inventory. And we've been to training with the state and had conversations with them, and they are currently good with this. So let me tell you what that is. The service lines installed after Oklahoma adopted the lead ban in 1987 are going to be assumed to be lead-free because of that ban. So anything installed after 1987, as of right now, we don't have to inspect. Okay, so that cuts down, I think, the majority of Broken Arrow, because we grew like crazy after that time. All service lines installed before 1988 have been inspected already, either through that AMR program, or we've gone out and gotten a few stragglers in. So we have our spreadsheet, and it's already been completed. Right now, we're working with our GIS group to map that and then determine how do we publish that. Do we just put a spreadsheet out there, or do we have maps that our citizens can interact with? Okay. As I said, this has to be published by October 16th of this coming year. So this is kind of hard to read, but it just shows you kind of what the spreadsheet is. So it starts out where you have to have an identifier, the address, the lat long of where that meter is located. Is there a lead connector? One of the things that was often done is coming off the main or going into the meter, they would use a small section of lead pipe because it's very flexible and easy to use. One of the definitions that the state has defined is that lead connector is not a service line. Okay, so we're identifying service line. We may have some lead connectors, small pieces of lead out under the street, but probably not very many if we do. The next column is the system-owned service line, that line that comes from the main to the meter. What material is that? Okay, and if you can see down there at the bottom, those are the classifications, and they're interested in, is it lead? Is it galvanized? Is it non-lead? In other words, something else. And so when was that installed? Okay, and was the service line material ever previously lead? Those are all things that we're putting into this spreadsheet. And then the orange section is about the customer line. Okay, what is it? Is it galvanized? Is it lead? How did we inspect it? And we're saying, from our meter installation records. And then the spreadsheet rolls up into that dark blue column and said, this is non-lead. And what it will do is it will roll all those up into kind of a front table that will go in, and EPA will look at that and say, how many lead lines do you have? So I will tell you, the good news about Broken Arrow is we have several employees that have 40 and 30 years of tenure. They have never seen a lead service line. Okay. We had some lead components, but to date, we have not found any lead service lines within Broken Arrow. Just talking to staff, we don't think there are any out there, as opposed to older cities that have lots of them. There are cities up in the Northeast that have already taken this on. They've already replaced all their lead. There's other cities that are working to that. And of course, it's very expensive. I mean, to run a new service line can be thousands of dollars. So if you looked at, if we had 10,000 lead service lines in the ground, that translates into a lot of money, that unfunded federal mandate that the utilities have to pay for. So the best way to keep from having a problem with lead is by strengthening the treatment requirements. And what we do as a result of what happened in Flint, Michigan, that occurred because they chose not to do corrosion control. That was a step that they intentionally left out. And then, of course, it escalated from there because they didn't fess up, and it went on. So that's the reason. After that, corrosion control was mandated by EPA. And so Broken Arrow does our corrosion control just by adjusting the pH to a certain level. We measure it and we say it needs to be this level to keep it from being corrosive within our pipes. Okay. So the other thing that ODQ wanted us to do is submit a corrosion study that proves that our method of providing corrosion control actually works. And we did submit that, and it was approved by the state. So we're in good shape there. Replacing all the lead service lines, again, we haven't found any out there. That's not to say that there isn't a random one out there, but to date, we haven't found any from that group of houses that was either built or the meters that were installed from that 1988 date back. Okay. Again, it's not clear as to who will pay if you do find it. And that is probably something that if that happens, that it will be up to this group to decide, who pays for that. Increasing sample reliability is another one of the mandates in the LCR. It's up to us when we go out and sample the system for water quality to pick representative sites. We could very easily go to places where we say, we know we don't have any problems there, therefore we're going to sample there. We don't do that. We have to submit to the state a sampling plan, and they look at it to make sure that we're going all over the city. We're picking large lines, big lines. We're being representative. We have been testing 30 different locations prior to last year. This year we have to go up to 50. And in another couple of years, that number will go up to 100 if they continue to follow the mandates of this rule. What has to happen is we have to deliver bottles to the house. They have to let the water sit in the pipes overnight. And the first draw in the morning is what we collect, because that water's been sitting in contact with the pipe and will be worst case. So what has happened after a couple of years of doing this, the homeowners go, we know we don't have lead. I hate getting up in the morning and having to think about doing this. And so we've lost a lot of our sampling sites. So one of the things that we did this year is Aaron's group kind of put out a message and said, are you interested in having your house tested? And we got over 1,000 homeowners that said yes. Okay. We only needed about 10 more, but we got like 1,000. So the question becomes for the city and this group is those 1,000 that want to get tested. The test is $200 a piece. Okay, so how do you handle that inquiry? And as we go forward, there's going to be more and more communication on this. And so you will be asked these questions in the future. Okay, protecting children in schools. Again, this is a real issue if you think about who is most impacted by lead, and that is children. Okay, so one of the rules, one of the parts of the rule is that sampling is required at all schools and child care facilities served by the system. So once they implement the rule and say you're going forward and doing this, then you have to do 20% of your schools each year for 5 years. So all told, with schools and child care facilities, we're sitting at about 63 right now that we know of that will have to be sampled. The state came out with a program where they were going to see what this looked like. And so they went out, and Atherton Elementary has been already done, where they sampled all the faucets, identified the ones that needed to be replaced, and that's been done. Other communities throughout Oklahoma have done the same thing, but this was just kind of a test case for them. Once you get the results, you have to share those results with the school, the child care facility, the state, the local health department, and the public, and let them know that you found faucets in schools possibly that had lead solder or other things in it. Again, there's an exclusion. Anything that's built after 2014, we're assuming that doesn't have lead in it. Okay. Again, right now, there's no timeline for pulling the trigger on this. I suspect it'll be that October date. But of course, the question is that my child goes to Atherton, they've already been tested, and I've got to wait 5 years until we get to this school. Again, how do we handle that? Do we decide, okay, we're going to do it all this year and we budget for it this year? So, okay, this is the lead testing program that the state put on, and they have a website dedicated to this, but there are some results here just to give you an idea. They've done 53 schools. The orange thing up there are where they found lead exceedances. So it does happen. And a lot of these schools are built a long time ago, right? And so those are normally where they find those. But I think in Atherton, they had to replace maybe 3 faucets or something like that. So they did find evidence in that particular school. But you can see the results. This is updated as the state's doing it. It's kind of live. So the last portion is the communication. And again, this is just our starting point where we put this out and said, we need volunteers. There will have to be a lot more information shared by Aaron's group and the utilities as far as what's going on with this program. Again, the main thing is going to be that lead service line inventory that's due. That will be published and people will go, what does this mean? Okay. And why didn't you test my service lines? There will be those questions. And so we'll do a good job in communicating that to the public, but I'm sure that y'all may get questions on that. You can look on other cities. Oklahoma City has a lot of lead service lines, not a lot, but they have them. And so if you look on their website, they have a lot more information. And so we're looking at that, and we'll update our website with additional information for the public. So I mentioned that they just came out with a new release of this rule about 3 weeks ago, and they're calling it the Lead and Copper Rule Improvements. They are looking at achieving 100% of lead pipe replacement within 10 years for the whole country. That's EPA's goal. And that means by October 16, 2034, that needs to happen. And again, this is just out for comment. It's not enacted yet. Locating legacy lead pipes, again, that lead service line inventory that we've already done, but they may say you have to check everyone, whether it was before 88 or after 88. That may be coming. Improved sampling, again, more samples, additional volume of sample, that's coming if the improvements is passed. Lowering the lead action level. Right now, we're talking at about 15 parts, and this is parts per billion, okay, which is very, very small. And they want to lower that by 5 down to 10 parts per billion. Again, remember what I said at the beginning. There is no level of lead in water that is safe. It needs to be 0. But so that's EPA's goal. And then strengthening protections to reduce exposure. Water systems will have to, if customers have lead service lines, we're supposed to provide lead filters and make sure that the public's aware of it. The cities that are replacing lead service lines, they actually have to provide drinking water during that time period. So again, this is part of the improvements, but they're not backing off. They're going forward with this because, of course, again, no level of lead is safe in water. So I know this is a lot, but it's kind of the latest thing that's coming down the pipe for y'all. And again, we've responded to it. We have our inventory. We're in a good place with that. And I think that we will be successful in going through the schools and the communication and just taking care of our residents to make sure that they understand we care about water quality. So anyway, I'll take questions, comments.
I would say the city has done a good job, and Chuck has certainly been on top of all of this and maintaining a safe water system. We're continually looking at it throughout the years. In all the years that I was a plumber, I never saw a lead pipe unless it was come from someplace else here. But there are places like we talked about schools. You talked about drinking fountains. A lot of times if you'll buy a faucet, name brand faucet, I won't name it, but begins with a D and it's a Delta. If you'll look at on the box, it says it's illegally used in some states because it does have a small amount of lead in the brass or the solder where they soldered it together. And just a little bit, if water sits there overnight in that one faucet, then it can, depending on the water, it can pull a little bit of that lead out. So your first glass of water is could be contaminated.
Right.
So I think you're doing a great job, and the city certainly wants to stay on top of all of that, getting that done and following up with that. Even if there are some old time lead pipes, the only lead pipe I ever saw was drainage pipes here in Broken Arrow, which wouldn't apply here. But thank you very much for
Thank you.
sharing that with us.
Charles, I'm really going to miss you. I know when I did my onboarding, you educated me so much in the water, all things water. And actually, water for all of us is very important, especially the quality of water. And for what we give you to work with, Verdigris River, you do a great job. I was very passionate about getting that $13 million water filter, and I'm not giving up on that. And I hate that we didn't get it done while you were here, but stay tuned because I'm not giving up on that. But I do think our quality of water definitely will start with fresh water with the things that we're working on now as this council. So it's definitely a priority for us, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we're going to miss you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah. Counselor Ford stole some of my words. I was going to say a very similar thing. I really did enjoy my time onboarding with you. Obviously, we can see your passion for what you do, and it translates and it benefits all of us here in the city. So thank you for your years of service and the things that you have done for Broken Arrow to help make us a better place. And we appreciate you, and we hope you enjoy your retirement, your time with your family and kids and grandkids, and the projects I know you have coming up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
sir.
we will be calling on you maybe.
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Hey,
still,
city consultant.
I have grandkids here, so.
You want to work, you want to serve on a committee?
Do I? Yeah, call me. At least give me the chance to say yes or no.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I want to stay involved.
Good.
Because
That's
it's
good to know.
important.
Good to know.
I just say, I don't mind working. I just don't want to come to work every day.
Right.
We got grandkids to play with, absolutely.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
You have to.
Yeah,
Thank you very
you.
much.
Excuse me, Mayor, we have a point of order. When we transitioned to the Bama meeting, roll was not taken. So just for the record,
Oh.
we need to go ahead and take roll for Bama.
Yeah, you're going to have to come back
Hey,
out.
that's right, Chuck.
Do that
don't leave.
again.
Green,
Here.
Ford,
Here?
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Wimpy.
Here.
What if we get paid for that?
This one we did that 'cause we invited.
Do we
Better
need
to
to
double
accept
check.
this?
There's no.
We're on
I
roll
don't
call
think
right
there's
now.
anything.
No action required on the report.
Okay. All right, item 6A, consideration, discussion, and possible award of the lowest bid to Cherokee Pride Construction and approve and authorize execution of a construction contract for the Old Adams Creek Lift Station. Come on.
Good evening, Chairperson, Vice Chairperson, Trustees, and City Manager. This is to award bids for our Old Adams Creek Flow Equalization Basin rehabilitation. The Old Adams Creek Lift Station is one of our big lift stations in the Adams Creek Basin, which we've presented on a couple of times, kind of the issues we're having there and some of the improvements we're slowly trying to get in place. So this project is just looking at increasing the capacity of that flow equalization basin, which will just help us handle more flow when we get rain events or peaking events that cause a lot of flow to come there. And we are excited to get this going. We kind of ran into a couple of roadblocks along the way, and we're just happy that it is going to construction hopefully soon, and will help everyone out and hopefully help utilities not have to deal with some of the issues they've had out there. So we are recommending approval and to award this to Cherokee Pride. And I will take any questions you all have.
Any discussion? Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
I did have questions, but since you're kind of your first time. No, no,
Oh, no, wait a second, Johnny. You can't let her off that easy.
Hey, how many, let me ask you this. Do you know, and I'll ask.
Come on back.
How many lift stations do we have about? Can you tell me?
So I know in the Adams Creek Basin by itself, we have around 33 lift stations total, and 13 of them are in that basin. I think 7 or 8 go to this lift station.
We're talking about a fortune of money of lift stations. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we get an opportunity, we need to kind of work on that. But thank you very much.
Yeah.
For sharing that. But there
That's a
are a
lot.
lot of
Yeah.
lift stations out in that area.
Yes, definitely. That's why we're hoping to start getting them improved and get some of them offline, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 6B, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of interlocal agreement between Bixby Public Works Authority and Broken Arrow Municipal Authority for the identification of responsibilities and duties requiring the operation, maintenance, construction, and financial obligations for supplemental water infrastructure connections. Kenny Schwab.
See if I can make that longer for you.
I know. I'm like, why do you do this to me?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Trustees, and General Manager, Mr. Spurgeon. We're in the authority. Kenny Schwab, Assistant City Manager over Operations. So the item before you, and actually the next item, are really connected, but I'll take them one at a time. This item actually started with the City of Bixby probably about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago. There was a council meeting that I wasn't here. I had to go take care of a water issue over around the Mingo area between Florence, 111th, and New Orleans, 101st. Shortly thereafter, I reached out to the City of Bixby, wanted to have a discussion about supplemental water. Can we get a connection on Mingo between Broken Arrow and Bixby? Mr. Cottle is the city manager at Bixby. My team went over and met with his team, and he kind of said, how about more than one connection? Can we look at a couple of other locations? One of the issues that they started having was on the south side of Bixby. It was in the news quite a bit that they were having problems keeping about 100 people and a home that's pretty high up on the hill by their old treatment plant in service. They were having some challenges over there, low water pressure and really low water. So he was talking about us, can we run a line from Tucson, 121st? That's our south loop. So in our city, we have a loop that goes around the south part of town, south of the turnpike, 16-inch water line. Could Bixby actually work with us and actually tie into that and go all the way across to the south side of the Arkansas River where they actually are? We also talked about continuing, I'm going to say at Olive, 129th on Tucson, 121st, and going west into Bixby. There's an old tank that Bixby has there. Could we actually work with them? Old site for a tank. Could we work with them and potentially give supplemental water there? This would be supplemental that could go both ways, to Bixby and to Broken Arrow, along with the site that we were talking about on Mingo. So after a long process of how do we model this, where do we have some connections, we actually ended up with an agreement, which is the next item. But the interlocal right now basically sets forth where we're looking, what type of modeling, supplemental, finance, obligations, and just the two working together. So this really is a continuation of your initiatives and general manager, city manager, Mr. Spurgeon's vision of partnering on a regional basis. This would actually help both communities if this can come to fruition. So the item in front of you is simply just an interlocal for us to communicate and get and move this together. So I'll be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Where does our main water source come from?
Bixby's comes from Tulsa. So great point there. Bixby, most of the communities in the Tulsa area actually get water from Tulsa. So if Tulsa's having an issue or something of that nature, there's no secondary source for those. So if there's a connection between Broken Arrow and Bixby, if they're having a problem on Spavinal or Oologah and we have water, then Bixby could be in water. So it's very strategic for the city as a supplemental, Broken Arrow as well as Bixby.
So this will help the 100 residents and the guy on the hill. I've seen that story. Like, it's sad. It just drips out of his, like.
We're going to model it to see if we can actually help them. Yes.
I mean, I love it. I love being able to help our cities and help our neighbors at the same time.
I don't know that we can help the guy on the hill because I think he can see the top of my tank, but that's, he's pretty high up.
Yeah.
Right. This would also help our residents as well. So this would prevent us from having to, let's say, use a fire hose and a fire hydrant to get water to part of our city.
Oh, so you were here that night. Yes, sir, you are correct.
And I'm looking at where this would be. This would also help those residents that are on wells out there if they wanted to connect in at some point, because that line wasn't coming all the way until Elysian
It could,
Fields
yes, you're
went in.
correct.
Okay.
So to the vice chair's point is when you get over around Tucson, just on the north side, and I'm going to say about a half mile west of Olive, 129th, they're on wells. They're actually, there's no water district. They're not served by Broken Arrow. They're not served by Bixby. They are in Tulsa County and on wells. This could be a potential. I think we're already there to actually help them, but
Yeah,
yes.
because Elysian Fields now has water,
Yes,
right?
so we can actually tie in and help them.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Cool. Yep. All right. I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
Whoops, sorry, Johnny.
That's okay.
We have a motion and a
I'll vote
second.
no.
Roll call. Okay. Item 6C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a professional services agreement with Garter LLC for feasibility study of a supplemental connection with the city of Bixby.
Okay, this one's easy then. This follows up with it. So to tie into that, we actually have negotiated an agreement with Garver. They actually have done a lot of our water modeling. We met with Bixby on this as well. So this is actually the water modeling that you just approved the interlocal. Now this would follow the professional consulting agreement to actually do the engineering on that, basically a feasibility. It's $90,000. Bigsby will pay for 50, we will pay for 40. There's a few other things that Bigsby wanted, and they said they'd pay for it. So the way it is set up, I will say this, is Broken Arrow will hold the contract with Garver, where that's kind of the old ODOT term of sponsor. So we'll sponsor it. We have the agreement with Garver, and Bigsby will pay us.
I make a motion, we approve the professional services agreement.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Oh, me. Sorry. I'm like, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. All right. Are there any remarks by the governing body members? City manager?
Nope.
Nope. We have no executive session
Motion to approve
or adjourn.
or to adjourn? Approve to adjourn?
Second,
Approved.
second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the adjournment. Roll call. All right. Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority to order. Roll call.
Green,
Here.
Ford,
Here?
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. We have no public hearings, appeals, presentations, recognitions, or awards. There's no general authority business. I did forget to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas since we'll be gone. This is our last council meeting for the year.
Merry
so-
Christmas.
Yes. City manager?
Nope, I'm good, Mayor.
No. There's no executive session.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second. We have a motion and a second.
I know, it's like.
Entertain a motion to clear the room for a brief recess.
So
Or go
moved.
into a brief recess.
Yes. Move to clear the room to go into executive session.
Second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes?
Parks,
yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
A lot of executive